know, what is this? Yeah, I'm like, all right.
Just got a nail now.
Call the meeting to order. We'll start with pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mochler,
Here.
Graylobe,
Here.
Brady,
Here.
Easy,
Here.
Gilbertson,
Any conflict of interest declarations? Hearing none. Approve agenda.
Move to approve.
Second. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion passes. Minutes.
Moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion passes. Are there any visitors to be heard? Hearing none. Brett.
Well, you've got a lot of not joined in there, do you think?
that's the ones that are invited that
Okay,
didn't
never mind,
necessarily,
sorry,
yeah.
Just making sure.
No, there's nobody in the waiting room though, so we're good.
No, we had a little speed bump on visitors that you heard last time, so just want to make sure.
Right away application for Clay Union.
Yep. We're good there.
You have the documents signed.
Yep.
To approve. Second.
Motion and a second. All those, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion passes. Driveway application for Jeff Becker on 457th Avenue.
Yep. That looked good. Move to approve Jeff's application.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion passes. Road construction estimate from Holtec for grain facility for southeast.
I see Adam's on. Is he gonna talk about this one or Brent or?
I just brought to our attention, or just bringing it to your guys' attention for the price, just so you guys can see it.
Did everybody get that in their package?
Mhm. So is this, so this is the alternate proposal to the concrete, right?
Yep.
And I see he had the couple concrete options in there too for comparison, is that right?
Yep.
Yep, and so then the previous number that we were playing with for that, what,
880.
880, okay, that's what I was thinking. All right,
So it's just for the road. Not the
Yep.
turning.
do we anticipate needing to revisit the turning lane costs at all? Or are we still feeling comfortable with the 440 that they were throwing around with that?
I don't know, none of this included that turning, so I don't know. Adam, are you on?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Where are we at with the turning lanes with the state?
I talked to the state last week out in Deadwood at the short course, and she said she would be working on the agreements to get everyone as far as the turn lanes are concerned. So we can move forward with all of that stuff.
I had a question on that, at the bottom of that email. Where it showed the 9-inch concrete and then the 8-inch concrete. And then right below that was the treatment base. Is that? And is that 8-inch depth or what?
No, that's the 6, I think, right? So
The asphalt was a 6-inch asphalt. Yes.
That treated base option is 6.
Yes.
Yes.
So talk us a little through that bottom paragraph of the, so 5 inch, is that what we were originally, is that what we were basing the 880 on? And you're saying 6 is,
No, Travis had messaged me and I got a section from Brent and Rod previously that it showed a picture of, it was a hand-drawn picture of 5-inch asphalt. And I just, with this truck count, I don't believe 5-inch asphalt is adequate. That is a city street section. Sometimes city street sections are higher than that, and that's just for local traffic. Like I said, in there, I'm more comfortable with 6. The section that we got from Geotech for Union County's project was an 8-inch asphalt section for this truck traffic. So, there's a little bit of leeway in there, but that also did not include the cement treated base. So I probably could take into account for some of that being down to a 6-inch, but that's why I showed a cost for a 6-inch, not 5.
So that drawing that you were provided, the base, is it, other than the 1 inch of asphalt extra, is there any difference in the base?
Nope, everything I left the same.
Okay.
so which is a more durable option, an 8-inch concrete option or an asphalt cement treated base option? Because now we got a lower cost on one of the cement options you proposed here.
My gut instinct is obviously concrete is going to provide the best option. You'll have less maintenance. That asphalt's going to crack and break right away. You're going to have, in the first few years, you're probably going to have to overlay that or surface treat it, excuse me, for sure crack seal. You'll have a lot of more maintenance up front with the asphalt than you will the concrete. So again, just our general, when it comes to this type of traffic and longevity, obviously concrete, in our opinion, is the best way to go, but not our money either. So
Can we bid those two out, the asphalt option and one concrete option?
yes, we could certainly do that. We could do an alternate bid. Absolutely.
And looking at, I mean, you provided 3 options here, and so I'm guessing you had some reason for also including a 9-inch, $50,000 is, or $60,000 is $60,000, but a
Yep.
lot of times you can invest a little bit more upfront on these things and save yourself costs in the long term. So like, what's the kind of time frame on cost savings on that?
Again, the 9-inch option was just something we had come up with prior. That was I keep going back to Union County's project because they're obviously very, very similar. Geotech, which again, I found this very odd. Geotech gave them a 9.5-inch concrete option and the 8-inch asphalt, which we thought the 9-inch option was kind of overkill. And in talking with the local concrete rep here in South Dakota, he ran numbers on his own pavement software and what they provide a lot to the state and other places, and he felt 9-inch was adequate. So Rod, in talking with Rod at the time, he was like, "Yep, let's just do the same. Let's be safe." But while Geotech's report to us did say an 8-inch concrete option, so that's why I provided you with both. If you wanted to go the safe route, hey, Geotech said 8-inch, and you want to save a little bit of money, that is what they provided us in the geotechnical report. But we had been planning on the 9-inch all the time. So I guess kind of just however you guys want to see it at that point.
One other question that I was wondering, so at the bottom, we also have, remember these prices are estimates or for surfacing only. Estimates, of course, make sense. When I was playing with the 880 number, I'd been, thinking of that as the total cost of the road improvements here. So what additional expenses or about how much extra money are we talking about here? How close are we to a total?
Then we're talking, all the traffic control, all the excavation costs, those types of things. I think our last estimate, we were at like 1.7, I think what we provided you guys. I had not gone through and updated everything else at this point. Obviously we have to add the turn lanes in now and all that stuff. But that's, I believe, where we're at when we did the grant was, I think we were at that 1.7 number. So
Yeah, now
for a total project. Yep.
for total project. So, okay. That's $500,000 more than what we have planned funding for. Is that correct? No?
You got the $600,000 grant, it's not $600,000 loan.
Yeah,
We were figuring the 1.4.
okay, so I had thought that 1.2 was what we were attempting to finance.
Or is that what it was? Yeah, because it was 440,000 or 480,000, wasn't it?
Thought it was 440 plus 880.
Does not include the turning lane, is that correct?
Right. So if the turning lane was still 440, then we're at. Almost 1.5.
Well, plus additional,
Well, actually, it's not.
substantial additional amount of, I mean, that's what I'm trying to drill down to here.
Yeah, this is strictly for the concrete, the aggregate, just again, the surfacing materials. I did not include, this is not the full estimate. That's not,
Not the-
piping and traffic control and erosion control, that kind of stuff, painting, signs, etc. that we had figured in.
On the county portion, so setting aside all the turning lane discussion, none of those costs are included in this estimate for the county road improvements, correct?
Correct. Those numbers are the concrete and the aggregate only, or the asphalt, the aggregate, cement treated base, and the fabric. It's just those few items.
Thank you. So this is a highway department project, and so we should probably be talking a bit about the highway department budget if there's potentially another $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 of highway department budget going into this. Is that something you were
That's
planning
not
on?
right.
Okay,
Well, because we went off 80/80 for the vote. That's what we based it on to begin with.
yeah,
Well, at the 8-inch concrete option, it's 950, so that's 70,000 more than what we planned on.
but I think I think we're missing something in the discussion here, it sounds like, because this, so what, did the 880 include all those additional costs?
No, that was just the road that was the road built.
Right.
It wasn't painted and it didn't have signs.
Painted, erosion control.
What are you
I just-
considering erosion control? Replanting, reseeding?
What do we have in? It's just we just had a lump sum number, but there are wattles, you put in around the pipes when you're putting it, yes, for erosion, so it doesn't go down the dirt till it's established with seeding, that kind of stuff. Yes, we've got fertilizing, mulching, erosion control, wattles. We got some drainage fabric. We've got remove and reset a mailbox. We've got painting. We've got corrugated metal pipes. We've got the surfacing, excavation, mobilization. We got some removals of the pipes, removal of that little bit of asphalt that's up by the highway there. But for the most part, those would be most of the items.
So if you could ballpark what those additional costs are for this part of the project, can you do that for us?
Yes, let me see here. Take off. My estimate that I had provided previously that we're at the 1.7. If you take off the surfacing stuff, it's 600,000 for the rest of the items.
Can I backtrack just a minute on those three options? Say that 9-inch concrete, that's the concrete and the base
Correct.
together.
Correct.
Okay,
And you said that is or isn't mobilization and
No, that is no mobilization in that or anything. It's just strictly the surfacing material.
that was everything. That was him coming in, turning the road out, putting it back the way it was. That was mobilization, that was the culverts. Now, I don't know about the seeding. And obviously didn't
And
include the
that's what
signs.
that was what I was working with. So that's why I want to make sure that we've got a lot of clarity here, because there's a $500,000 or $600,000 difference here. We need to.
Well, I mean, we bid it out and we find out.
Okay.
I mean, that's the only way we're truly gonna get a cost. Yep.
I honestly think your idea of the bid alternate is a great idea.
Yep.
That settles a big debate when you do it that way. The other thing we discussed or briefly had discussed, I know at one point, was removal of the second crossing. And at one point it was, yes, let's do it for safety reasons. Another meeting it was not, let's not do it. I don't know where we landed with that. So that I would need to talk to the railroad about in my talks with them. And again, they had provided me with an insight of there's some funding involved with that they could provide, but he did not tell me what that would be. So
Southeast kind of wants to keep it. They also agree that there's gotta be a sign that says no truck traffic. Everybody leaving the facility has to go back east and
Okay.
follow the road that we built. They can't. They're not gonna be able to go west out of the facility.
Okay.
And if they do, it's gonna be at their own risk, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
As of today.
Okay.
That
well,
makes-
and we've got time to figure that out too as we get into the turn lane stuff and wrapping up that portion. But
Do you have any idea when the state is gonna have a clue on the turning lanes?
no, like I said, she has to get you guys the agreements on who's paying what portions, so that's all settled. And then in that will be our estimate as well for them. And once that's all signed, we can get surveyors down there and get things surveyed and get her going.
Yeah.
I do not know what the holdup is, but that's like I said, I asked her last week and she said she'd be working on it. So
What's the quickest we can? What's the quickest you could have the documents ready for bid? Or how does this? Do you make that document up? How do we do that? I forget.
I would think that we can help facilitate that. Yes, I believe. I'm not sure if that through the grant. Yes, it should go through us. Yeah, we can help you guys with that. Yep. Like it would anything else. Yep.
And so then at this point, trying to think through some of the agreements that we made over time. But at this point, I believe the agribusiness grant, we simply have one. There was a point where they were telling us that we needed to have everything settled on how we were paying for the turning lanes and approve that we were going to be kicking in on that, I think. But they approved us before they got anything formalized, right? So we right now have that is a not in writing agreement about how those turning lanes are paid.
That's what
Is that
she's-
correct? That's good. Okay, so that's something
Yep.
we'll see at the commission level and get to discuss a little. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Should be.
Yeah. 'Cause
And have you got the paperwork for the grant itself?
What's that?
Have you gotten the agreement for the grant itself yet?
Yes, right?
that we received it? Or I mean. that
But
we-
not an official. Here, just word that you've received it, or you have got paperwork to.
That
We
might have been
accepted it.
last year. That might have been, did we authorize Betty to sign that? Because I remember being a little surprised that we'd been awarded it as concretely as we appeared to have been awarded it, because at one point they were saying this is contingent on.
Yeah, we only got it.
Yep.
Facility. We didn't.
Well, that I think it's still contingent on.
Do you remember us getting anything?
I don't remember that we have yet.
Okay.
I know we haven't received the funds, but I was just wondering any paperwork.
I don't think so.
I tried digging into that a little bit too, to see if it had any federal monies behind it, and if so, they're veiled, they're pretty far back in the process, so I mean, it's not like
Supposed to be all state funds.
USDA money or something, so.
We'll have to look, figure that out. So, yeah, so if you get the document ready, I think just contact Carrie.
Okay.
Because it'll be, what do we have? I guess we meet next Tuesday. Yeah. But then it's to the end of the month before we meet again.
Okay.
So yeah, just contact Carrie whenever you get it.
Sounds good. It'll probably come right to you guys, but if I do get it, I'll definitely pass it on. So.
No, I mean the bid, to bid out this road, to start that.
Oh, yes. Okay, sure.
Bid that with
Yep.
the alternate.
Yep.
We want to just do one alternate, or do you want all three?
I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking that if we go with it, it's $60,000 for another inch of concrete, maybe in the scope of the project, that's worth it. I don't know.
Do we do 3 alternates? I mean,
Sure.
it's gonna be simple, then they just add one more. inch.
Yeah, that's 8 versus 9. That's very simple. Absolutely.
Yeah, let's just go with all 3 then. See what.
Okay. Can do.
Anything else for us?
I have nothing else for you guys unless you have something for me.
No, doesn't sound like it. Thank you.
Brent,
Thank you
Brent,
much.
anything else on your end? You good?
Oh, good. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Have a good day.
You too.
The other thing, get the bids, but the one thing we want to take into consideration is we don't have the equipment to fix concrete.
That's right. Yep.
So we would have to, that all has to be hired.
That was my concern. Concrete's great. Sooner or later, it cracks and breaks, and then hiring somebody, and then you have that chunk in there, and that starts heaving. So
That's something that I think the LTAP's probably done a lot of research on. Balancing some of those costs. Is that might be something that'd be worth just maybe doing a call in and just, just have a little chat with them, say, hey, we'd be bidding all this out, but I've seen graphs they have of, where it makes money sense, if like over time, when you figure in different kinds of costs and so.
How much it breaks down, or how much the concrete would break, for how much truck traffic compared to asphalt. So I'm sure they got something out there.
Yeah. Yep.
in asphalt, this is not gonna be an 80-mile-an-hour road.
Right.
So
No, I think we need to post it at 25.
Well,
because it's a
yeah,
short
but I
stretch
mean-
anyway. Right,
if you need to overlay it with some more, throw some more out. I mean,
we're not gonna be getting a lot of this.
exactly, that's what I'm saying. Speeds aren't gonna be that great, so
But they're gonna be heavy.
I get it, but they're all
Heavy and slow
legal.
is better than even light and fast speed. fast
Yeah,
pace.
well, go to somebody's highway conference. It's more complicated than that, isn't it?
Yeah, the biggest concern would be just the intersections for the turning.
Yeah.
I have the most problem probably.
Deflections are what destroy the roads, so it's the amount that the road surface deflects and then comes back up, so sometimes actually like a parked, very heavy vehicle can do more damage than a vehicle moving over it quickly. If it's not bouncing, if you ever, a heavy vehicle that's got a whole lot of axles can do less damage than a lighter vehicle that's got one axle or,
And then, especially during the time for like weight limits, I mean, that won't be a road that we'll be able to put weight limits on. So, obviously, more wear and tear there, not more quick up there during that period.
but definitely relevant. Yep.
Hazard mitigation grant resolution, designation of applicant agent.
Right. So, we had a call. So is Lane with us today? No, Lane's on. So Sean Heggie, Brent, you were in, right? Lane, and then we had, Brad from Multig. So basically, the state has get a few notes, $5.87 million in funding available because of the FEMA event. And this is mitigation funding, and it's a competitive grant program. So, so we would be competing with other counties. We are one of the impacted counties, I believe. So we are kind of towards the front of the line, but it's a little more complicated than that. And so there's a few steps happening. We're updating an emergency, or a mitigation list, Lane. I think I might be getting my language wrong here. But we're adding some structures to it. And the idea is we would be, go on, Lane, sorry.
No, we need to add the project to the pre-disaster mitigation plan.
Thank
I sent Brad back an email. I think I included everybody. He sent me the bridge numbers and I don't need that. I need a paragraph of what they're doing. to add into the plan. The bridge numbers are just way too specific for a plan, so.
And these are
Uh,
the- Bob gave
oh,
us-
go ahead, Travis.
Okay.
And so basically we'd be trying to get money to put a bunch of rock upstream of the bridges and reinforce and prevent future damage. And we'd have to justify it with the cost benefit analysis. So, you know, if, once we've done that, we've said that the investment of grant money and our money into this is worth it long-term in savings, on maintenance on these structures. And the local match, if we win this, is only 10%. So it's a a lot of value for our dollars if we can manage to get it.
Yep.
And today, I believe all we need to do is designate a person that can sign application documents to keep it moving. And Sean Heggie is at CCOG is doing the most of the grant writing, it sounds like.
Yep.
Am I getting all that right? Yep. And I checked with him about who that has to be. It can be pretty much anybody. Customarily, it is either a highway superintendent or an emergency manager or a member of a commission, but it could be whoever we feel is appropriate for that, so. And that's what both these documents are basically.
I think you should be that agent.
Yep, I think that makes sense to me.
Yep. I vote for Brent also.
All right. Well, I move to designate Brent the applicant agent for the hazard mitigation grant application process.
Second. Motion and a second, any further discussion?
And then once we've done that, I think we also have to move to resolve that as well, so.
So this one could just be a regular vote, right, Karen?
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Both same sign, voting passes. Then we've got the resolution for appointment of that.
I move that we resolve that Brent is our applicant agent for this project.
Second. I have a motion and a second, further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Gilbertson.
Aye.
Teasy.
Aye.
Brady.
Aye.
Graylobe.
Aye.
Mochler.
Motion passes.
I found I was gonna hire Rod Polly back, part-time, just to drive truck and stuff, but, you know, about.
Well, that didn't take long.
Yep. Yep, 3 hours on the couch, she's like, ah. That's great.
Yeah, well, we think it was that long.
I missed him, I did. It hadn't been long, but,
You designate him to have to come to the meetings.
well, you're his boss now, so I think you can.
You have to come. On Greenfield. There's
Oh,
tower
yeah.
up there, did they ever get a hold of
They
it?
got a hold of me, but they said they wanted to come in and get the okay about cleaning the ditch and stuff, and I told them they had to come here. And,
But they were gonna, is that Reed?
yep,
Okay, cause he was gonna put a tile in the ditch, I told him he needed a right of way application.
yeah, I told them where to go and stuff, but I haven't seen nothing, or heard nothing from them.
Might wanna keep an eye on that.
Okay.
I think they probably started already.
Okay. Yeah, cause he called and talked and asked about maybe seeing if they could put a culvert underneath our road on the gravel, and I was like, yeah.
Oh, under the gravel, that, I don't know, that's up to you, they wanted to go under the oil at one point,
Oh, really?
and that was a definite no.
Yeah. But then he said, be careful, just rip right across it, and I was like, yeah, no.
Good job.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Andy?
Do I just get the signature?
You can have, yeah, seems like this is all you need, cause I'll have to get those other ones printed off, carry that resolution. And get those signed, but he doesn't need those.
No, I can send those in.
Thank you. Thanks.
So as you said, just like I've had in a few recent meetings, a few more weapons that we've been able to get court authorization to dispose of. There's three weapons, four of them, one of them's a pellet gun. So it's not any sort of control on that, but we've taken the previous ones you folks have approved us of disposing of up to Gerard's, and they're gonna go on a consignment sale. And then I just want to add these four to that, and I believe that's gonna resolve all of the weapons we have in our custody. Some are still here, but these ones, the other ones have people that claim they're gonna come and pick them up. The reason some of these are trickling in is the notification time, and I just don't want to wait until every single one of them's ready to come talk to you. So just try to keep this process moving.
I move to surplus these items.
Second. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thanks. Lynette.
Right. So it looks like the first part is the abatement applications. The first one, I think, did you do the owner occupied first? Yeah,
Yep.
yep. So, this was a owner occupied application. The deadline for that every year is March 15th. She submitted it online by the deadline. Our online state form never emailed it to me, so I did not realize it was there. So this is one that I recommend we, abate the difference in owner occupied classification versus what she received as a non-owner tax bill.
I move to approve this abatement.
Second.
And then, oh,
Motion second. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
the second one is confidential, but it's a veterans, I think Carrie
like-
redacted it, but if
Yeah,
you
it's all
have
redacted, just no names.
specific questions, yeah. So our assessment date every year is November 1st. Deadline for the applications, November 1st, owned and occupied, November 1st, et cetera. So with the veterans application, we are supposed to have that in hand November 1st. However, the law allows if they've missed that deadline for some reason, and right now the main reason being the VA is very, very far behind in award letters. But if they have their permanent and total designation as of November 1st, we can put it on whenever, and then they have the right to abate. So that's kind of the situation going on here, is they're asking for that. It's confusing because the current abatement of that is 150,000, but the current qualifying amount is 200,000. So this particular veteran is asking for his 150,000 exemption to be applied to taxes payable in 2025. I think
So-
that kind of covers it.
Yeah. I'm sorry that I'm not super familiar with how does the veterans,
It takes,
here, so-
it takes $150,000 off their full and true value.
okay, all right. And so, so this was not, so the reason that it wasn't on the books is it wasn't submitted prior to November 1st, but it was submitted after that. And the full disability that would have justified it was in place prior, as of November 1st. So they hadn't received that designation, but they had whatever the condition was that,
So they got their
Justified,
award letter,
right?
I believe this one, they got the award letter in July,
oh,
and they needed to qualify November 1st of 23.
okay.
And I don't have it with me, but I believe the qualifying deadline was something like December 1st or whatever, but
12, 26, 23, is that what?
Yeah.
Have an abate. Reference.
I did you give it a number? I don't know which number we're on.
I don't know if the new system gives it a number. Does it, Rhonda?
An abatement number?
Yeah.
I assign the abatement number if the abatement goes through. And what it is it's the bill number.
But I mean, as far as us referencing something, because we don't have a name to reference, and we're approving a blank. It's got numbers on it, but it's nothing. There's no name for us to see or a number to see.
And providing something like an address or anything like that identifies them. So, yeah.
Yeah, this
We
was a
looked at
tough
it
one because it
yesterday.
has to remain confidential, so I had to redact all that stuff.
Maybe we do need to just assign numbers to the requests, whether or not they're approved.
And that would happen in Carrier Rhonda's hands. The
We just want to know for a minute, how do we specify?
Who this, or what this one is, what number at least.
Yeah, get you a-
The one we considered on this day or something like that.
I can get you a bill number, because that's what I, that's the abatement number.
Okay.
Is the bill number, so do you need it right now?
No, we can do this next Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Our-
everything's got pretty firm timelines on all these stuff, but yeah, I think that's still.
this
fine.
this does not fall under equalization, so you can do it whenever.
Next Tuesday?
Yep.
Okay. I was sorry, I wasn't sure if you needed to move anything on that one.
Oh, that's what
I
we
guess I
did.
move to table that discussion until our next meeting. Yep.
A motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. All same sign, motion passes.
All right, annual review. So I prepared the wall of numbers that you guys normally get. I think I'll just try to kind of walk through it and mention the highlights. So we completed our sales audit on the online state system. That was new a couple years ago, and that's been working well and continuing to update. We have not gotten our factors back, so I don't know what my median ratio is. Right now, it's somewhere between 86.6 and 90.4. And then coefficient of dispersion is something I kind of talked to you guys about last year. That basically describes after our assessment changes, how far away from your sale value are the sales, right? Are they within, and it's not that, are they within so many points, but essentially is it, they always call it a shotgun blast versus a rifle blast of sales compared to your median. And last year we were doing really well with 15.9. This year we're at 20.2. So just trying to get our finger on the market has been more difficult. Part of that is also timeline. We were short-staffed for about 4 months. A lot of turnover. We were dealing with work that was done by 2 people that are no longer in the office, and just trying to catch all of that stuff and clean it up. And then you'll see we've got the total non-factored assessed value.
Can I
Oh,
pause on that one real quick?
yeah.
So just because we have a couple new people on the commission and you did do a really robust discussion, an explanation of what that coefficient of dispersion was and last year. So I just want to, did that make sense to everybody? That shotgun versus like, yeah, like also like similar to like an R squared value or something like that. But I thought that that was a really interesting figure and we are still in a pretty good range if I'm remembering your
It's-
discussion last year.
It's decent. So these are the 2 things I'm reporting to you because they are required by state law. So our median needs to be between 85 and 100. Closer to 100 is better because you are taxed at 85% of your market value. So the closer you are to 100, the more everyone feels that roll back to your taxable. Coefficient of so your median is your level of assessment. Your coefficient of dispersion is your quality of assessment, and state law requires that that is under 25. So for rural areas, they say if you're getting down to 8 or 9, then you're probably shooting sales, just setting things at their sale price and leaving them alone. So, all right.
Thank you. Sorry,
Yeah,
didn't mean to
no,
interrupt.
no, that's okay. If you guys have questions, interrupt me. That's fine. Our total non-factored assessed value, you can see there, that's the total value in the county with and without exemptions. This number is the basis of taxation, but it's not what people will be taxed on because you still have to apply those taxable factors and whatnot. Just kind of gives you a glimpse of what we've added in value. I think more important is your growth and reappraisal numbers. Growth was due to new construction, discretionaries, additions, changes in classification. That growth amounted to only about 0.82%. So our growth is down considerably.
It was closer to 2 last year, is that right?
I can't remember for sure. I thought it was like 1.8
1.8.
or 1 point, yeah, something. So 0.82 is pretty low as far as new growth goes.
And that is even with, or I guess that TIF isn't off yet.
No.
No, okay, so.
Yep. And then due to reappraisal, countywide, there was an approximately 10% increase. This is the question I've been getting the most in relation to that new Senate bill. I put some points at the end. We can cover that later, but we had about a 10% overall increase in values just due to market changes or reappraisal. Ag land went up 4.13% for crop. So the top dollar is 4,264.42. Top dollar pasture went up 7.46% to $1,997.66 there. So some of the activity in the office is we've reviewed Star, Riverside, and Glenwood townships. So effectively, we finished our rural review. It took us 4 years to complete. So that was a good thing to do. We were finding a lot of the values were the same as they had been in the 90s, which was very surprising. As far as outbuildings went and that kind of thing, they kind of got set it, forget it situation. So just catching those. And then we looked at all the building permits, both county and urban. So everything in the city and outside. Clay County homes, I ended up doing anywhere from 5 to 13% increase to get those to market value. Our non-ag rural land kind of bore the brunt of reappraisal this year. The values have not been tracking the same way the market has. We're seeing 2-acre lots sell for 55,000 plus. And then as you go up from there, it's exponential. We had a 40-acre parcel go for 15,500 an acre. So pretty significant. So what we ended up doing this year was rescaling our rural non-ag acres. So the new first acre value where you have utilities, developed area, that starts at $50,000 an acre. Obviously, if you get into some of the rural subdivisions, it might be less. If you get into the river subdivisions, it might be more. But in general, every non-ag rural acreage got $50,000 for their first acre. And then each additional acre was set at $7,500. That's based on sales where we saw, we had auction of 4 that moved away from the road. It was a shared easement. You don't have your own access. And the ones at the top were selling for like 200,000. And then the ones at the bottom were about 100,000. And it worked out to be about $9,000 an acre. So with that increase, we kind of finally got some of our small acreages up above what they would have been at like ag value, because they were previously our additional acres were $2,000 an acre. And if you look at what your crop and pasture were at, that's pretty low for something that's supposed to be at market, when your market ag is at 4,000 and then 1,997. So that was a significant change for the county. It was one of those, do you do it over the course of several years, but it already hasn't been happening over the last 4 years? Or do you just kind of rip the Band-Aid because we finally finished our rural review? And talking with some of the other counties, Lincoln County did a rip the Band-Aid a few years ago, and then Union County kind of took it over a couple years and they're still behind. So I decided to do it 1 year, one shot, and see where we got. So without that, we would not have had our median up above 85. So, any questions on that? Okay.
Well, I might have a few, sorry.
No,
There's
it's okay.
just so many details in all these things that
Yep.
I think are important and relevant, and I just want to make sure that I and anybody listening understands them well. So, so non-ag rural land, that's anything outside of city limits that's not being used for agricultural purposes, correct? So
Yep.
that could be like a 2-acre wooded parcel or a 100-acre parcel that's got a river running through it and maybe a field, but the field isn't in agricultural production or something like that. Are both of those in that classification?
So this is something that I've been running into because it has changed. It used to be, so Clay County's minimum for an ag parcel is 20 acres. State law is very clear now. I'm not sure when it updated, but you need to have an agricultural pursuit on that ground.
Yes.
Because in the past you just had to have 20 acres, there are many parcels out there that are 20 acres or more that do not have an ag pursuit that are still receiving ag. It's on my list of things that I'd like to clean up. I don't know when I'll get to it. It's definitely, there's a lot. I mean, the more I dig into this job, the more I have to remind myself, don't bite off more than you can chew. And so your understanding is mostly correct. If you have 40 acres and no ag pursuit, then technically you should not receive ag because ag status is considered tax relief for people whose primary source of income is agricultural. And I had this discussion with someone the other day about the movie Incredibles. When everyone's super, no one is. So when everyone's ag, how is that tax relief? So it is on my list to start cleaning that up, especially with the kind of microscope on assessment lately. I think that an audit is going to be likely, and that would be something we need to clean up is if you have 22 acres and you do not have an ag pursuit, then you should not be ag. However, the qualifications for an ag pursuit are out there for if you have 2 acres and you meet the income requirement, or if you have 2 acres, but you have 80 acres in Union County, 2 miles away, you qualify. And that's something that I've encouraged people to do, is to get that ag status because our office did increase the land to be more close to market. Does that kind of answer your question?
I think so, yeah, yeah. And I know, I mean, you spend your whole days in deep waters, so we could talk a long time, and sometimes we do. Oh, yeah.
I got a question then.
Yeah.
The WRP programs.
Mhm.
There's no ag pursuit there.
There was at some point.
Some point,
And that is something I've argued with the state a little bit.
because these 20 acre parcels, houses built, at some point there was ag.
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering what,
I will say most of our WRP or CRP is in a management unit. If you have an 80-acre parcel where you are pursuing ag on part of it, that is management unit.
the CRP and the WRP are completely different.
Right.
Because the CRP you'd be receiving annual payments.
Mhm.
That's gonna come out of production at the end of the contract. WRP is, they're perpetual.
Okay. Honestly, I don't know that I have enough knowledge on it to answer. I think that if it's receiving that, I would consider it in a way a subsidy.
You get paid.
Okay. I'm gonna have to follow up with the state, yep. Because that's where it gets tricky and that's where I advocate that directors maintain some of their discretion. Again, most of what I've seen, they qualify via management unit. They're not currently cropping it. That parcel may not have it, but you have 80 acres. If you only have 10 acres, that's it. You're not pursuing it. You don't own anything else in the county. Is it ag? Does the law outline that? What is my interpretation of that law? It would all,
So if you have 80 acres of WRP, that's all you have in the county. Anywhere, is that still ag land? then? Under what you were describing?
I would have to ask someone that's been in it longer than myself. Because it's very clear that you have to have the primary use of the land needs to be agricultural. And I think that's probably a question that Black Hills could attest to because they have a lot of stuff out there that's that large that has no ag pursuit.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So,
I'm just wondering. 'cause
Yeah.
We have quite a few WRP acres.
mhm.
Just bracing myself for the battle.
Yeah.
If we all of a sudden take away their ag designation.
That's a couple years down the road. I will tell you that. I'm not planning that this summer. I don't think I've got other battles to fight first. Yep.
And I was a little bit, so then for the non-ag rural land, figures that you use here, do you just use that formula simply across the whole county?
Yes.
Okay, but not so, because my expectation was if you lose ag status, then you're just, it's the same process as you use for everything else. You look at market value, you look at what land around it's being sold for. But this works out, because I mean, I can just imagine there being places that would be much more desirable chunks of 40 acres in one location versus another location. It just doesn't seem like all across the county, those are all equally valuable.
I do mass appraisal.
Okay, all right, so that's.
At a mass,
that's how it
I
works.
do not touch every parcel every year.
Okay.
We have 9,200 parcels. That's not feasible for my
Nope,
office.
That's a perfect.
That would be
appropriate
3,000
response.
fee
Yep.
appraisals where we would have to go find perfect comparables for all 3,000 for each of my staff. Not feasible.
Yep,
Mass
complaints.
appraisal.
Yeah, no,
Mass
that's
appraisal.
Totally fine.
Yep.
Just wanted to make sure I understood it correct.
We ended up doing, again, that 5 to 13% increase on urban land, and then rural outbuildings, we did not change this year. Kind of just trying to tackle the land and then go from there. One of the other big changes that I'm still working towards compliance for the state is our existing, we have some adjustments for trees, marsh, and sand, particularly along the river. There used to be some protocol to that. I feel like the protocol kind of got fuzzy along the lines. And now the state's telling me I can't do that. Last year, our trees were at $65 an acre. And so if you had a heavily wooded area, we set it at $65 an acre. It was not on productivity. Most of it is in ag parcels. And it's not a state allowed adjustment. We are not allowed, it has to be a percentage based on its productivity if it's ag. So that's something where water for the state should be 10% of your top pasture. So if you have water, it should be $199.77 an acre. And our trees were only at $65 an acre. So if people have trees, sandbars, that kind of stuff, or accretion ground that's mostly sand, those did end up jumping significantly up to that $199.77. Just as a measure of trying to work towards compliance. The next goal would be to get those acres that are considered trees, marsh, or sand back onto productivity, and then it would be 10% of its top dollar. So if you have trees that the top dollar on it would only be 800, then it would be 83 an acre, et cetera. Just trying to get it to a percentage adjustment versus a dollar per acre adjustment, but it's an uphill battle with that as well.
So I could have sworn that.
Yeah.
I could have sworn I remembered an appeal where the appellant was specifically saying that he had a tree stand on his property that was there when he was born, and he was complaining about the switch. If I remember right, it was the switch to productivity matrix, which was then charging him for the ground underneath the trees, just like it was productive farm ground. Like, we heard that appeal.
Fun fact, all the other counties in the state did this in 2009. We started in 2021. So we're behind everyone else.
Okay.
They can't call their buddy somewhere else and see what it's like because memories are short.
Okay, so we're moving to the system that person was appealing, but this
Yes.
is the non-compliant system that we have on the books now, and we're just gradually working through.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep. And if you're curious about what the state does allow for adjustments to the productivity method, there is a codified law that outlines that. So, and I can give that to you. I don't have it written down, but I can give that to you if you're curious.
I'm curious. Go ahead. Thanks, Renee.
Yep. All right. So kind of tracking with our growth being down, our building permits were down countywide by about 22 permits. It's not that significant, but I mean, if you think of 22 less houses in the county, that makes a big difference. However, our market sales were up. So we had 176 countywide arm's length transactions. I didn't put the actual number of transactions on here where people would, put it in trust, transfer it to, you've got, termination of joint tenancy, that kind of thing. We didn't include those. These would be market sales that we can study for ratio purposes. We're up by 17 sales. As far as looking forward this year, our Eagle View flyover started last week, Wednesday. I haven't had an update, but they did tell me they began flying. So we'll have new aerials to work off of and change finder where they're picking up any new buildings that we've missed in our review areas. We are planning to do Irene and Wakanda this summer. Those have not been done in a long time, so that'll be door to door picturing, measuring. So that's part of our work plan. And then also converting to Catalyst, our new CAMA system, and then starting to phase out Bossa Nova. So that'll be another big project of, updating our cost table. We're currently on 2013 cost table. We'll be going to, I'm not sure yet if Q4 2020 or if we'll do the current 2024 table. We'll see what is advised as far as that. Beacon subscriptions were down by 2, but that I wasn't able to sort out how many monthly and quarterly Beacon subscribers we've started getting. I know we had quite a few monthly subscribers last summer, which thank you guys for approving that. That's a lot of people are very appreciative of that. We have 70 partners on Beacon, and then the site visits were actually up by over 6,000 people visiting Beacon online. We also had the number of parcels viewed or parcel reports viewed were up by 21,320. So just a lot more online traffic with Beacon. At our customer service desk, they were actually down by 1,690. So we've had a lot less people in the office, a lot more people just online. So Beacon is still a very valuable asset for our office. Especially when we were short staffed and doing days on the road with the office closed, people could still access what they needed online. So kind of Eagle View, that flyover, we had a lunch and learn last August. And then with the flyover, we will start to implement Cloud Explorer versus Connect Explorer. It's just a little more seamless on the imagery, a lot more user friendly. I'm very excited. And then as far as our partnerships go, Clay Rural Water did decide not to partner for the next 3 years. And so we'll revisit a memorandum of understanding 3 years from now, see if they want. But that just means they've dropped to being a Beacon subscriber and they will not receive the imagery in their mapping. It's kind of what that looks like for them. And then you can see the number of images viewed were up, and then logins were up on Connect. Any questions on our online systems?
One, just because I can't recall, when we signed that contract, the images viewed, the more images we view, the more we are getting a value for our investment, right? It's not a per image cost, is there?
No, it's just a one-time, like, it's the software fee and
Yeah,
then
that was my
imagery.
recollection. So this is just a good thing if we're seeing more
Yep.
utilization. It's not costing us anything
Yep.
extra, right?
And I've heard a lot of feedback of how helpful it is, especially for the amount of new staff that we have both here and at the city. They really appreciate having the imagery and up-to-date imagery. So we're excited for new imagery. All right. On the second page, we jump into appeals. 14 local boards had a total of 45 appeals. Last year, there was only 28, so that number was up pretty significantly. However, our office was able to make 20 recommendations of new value. Of those 20 recommendations, 10 of them were ag status applications. So again, kind of getting us up to market value. We have people who've been living there for, they platted it. So that kind of takes the ag status away right away when you plat it, instead of applying right away, or when they got their income, 3 years of income information, they just haven't applied. So we had 10 applicants at the local board time. And that was, I still encourage people to come in, ask about it. If you qualify, we'll get the application. And then you can see a breakdown of numbers of which township boards had the most. So as of today, I do have new numbers for you guys. Consolidated board, we have 15 appeals. County board, we have 7. And today is the last day to postmark. So there's potentially more, but that's what we're looking at for numbers right now. Any questions on those? I did include the local appeal guide again. I know it didn't change that much from last year, but it has all the new dates in there. If you guys all want to take a look at that prior to the consolidated and county boards, it's got a lot of helpful information for your role as a Board of Equalization.
It's an annual reread as well.
Mhm. Yep. So conference is June 10th through 13th in Mitchell. All 3 of us will be attending. And then school is September 14th through 19th in Sioux Falls, and all 3 of us will be attending. I do have room in my budget yet. I'll probably have Ina come babysit for all or part of those days. But just kind of looking ahead, if they continue to have us gone, there's potential in the future that we would have a week where our office is closed. This is required training. We're new. We haven't made it through, none of us have made it through our first certification cycle yet, so we are still required to attend those. And then from there, if there's no other questions on that,
I just, one more small question. I just, way back up to the beginning, the total non-factored assessed value from assessment notices. The exemptions column, what is and isn't included in that? Because there's some huge projects like Lewis and Clark Water Project, the Wellness Center expansion, med school, there's some like very valuable things we don't tax. But
Yep.
this number seems too small to encompass all of those.
yep, so these exemptions are more so the things that are like, if you have a property that's agricultural and it's occupied to the third degree, it doesn't have to be owner occupied. You can have third removed relative live there, you get $10,000 off your ag buildings. So that goes into that amount. So it's value that exists. It's a taxable building. However, it's exempted due to the ag exemption. It's things like discretionary formulas where it's tiered taxation of ag and commercial and then commercial residential. It's either a 5-year, 7-year formula. So the extra value on that. So you have, for example, an apartment building that's, trying to think it's quarters. So we'll say it's $200,000, right? For the first 2 years, you can only tax $50,000 of that. The rest of it would be exempt.
Gotcha.
So those formulas, elderly freeze, veterans exemptions, none of those are, or elderly freeze is not in there yet. That happens later, but
So is everything that's exemptions, do those all eventually filter? Are those all expected to eventually filter into the tax base?
no,
No, not necessarily.
like
No.
ag buildings, that 10,000 is always
That
gonna be,
makes sense. Yep, yep.
There's no TIF.
not yet. The TIF value is still included in the total
Okay.
at this level.
Okay, thank you. I realized I didn't clearly understand what was in there or what is
Yep.
in there. So thank you.
And- Yep, and we actually have a breakdown of that at the bottom of our abstract. So if you ever wanted to look and see, I could provide that.
Thank you.
So, yep. Okay. Any other questions on that? All right. Senate Bill 216, our lovely property tax bill. So, it becomes effective July 1st. I've had a lot of people ask if I'm taking that into consideration when setting values this year. No, goes into effect July 1st. As of this point, we have had no guidance from Department of Revenue. They have not told us what it will look like for our offices. They have not told us how they will implement it. They have not told us how we should implement it. Not throw them under the bus, but we don't know what we're doing with it yet. So I think the biggest challenge with it is I've been here since December of 2020, and the last 4 years, every year has been educating taxpayers on what the system looks like. It's always changing. I think just going through the review, we talked about several things that have changed in the last few years. So for our office to constantly be educating is it's a lot. I didn't take this job to be a teacher. So that's kind of the biggest thing is everyone understands that, okay, so now if I own and occupy my property, it can only go up 3%. That is not how the bill reads. And then they expect it to go on their tax bill this year. That is not how the bill reads. It goes into effect for assessed values in 2026, which is not until taxes payable in 2027. So essentially, from the taxation side of things, you have a year and a half before you start to see the change reflected. Go ahead.
So is this, maybe it was an earlier version of this bill, but is this the one that's went from 2020 valuations and said it couldn't increase by more than 3% since after that, or no, this is a different one?
This is a different one. This is the one that Governor Roden put through.
Okay.
The one you're referring is Senate Bill 191, which did not make it through the House. I believe it passed the Senate, but didn't pass the House. So they have a 5-year effect with the sunset in 2031. Taxes, I can't remember if that's taxes payable or assessed values in 31. However, I fully anticipate that they will be working hard to make sure that something else goes into effect before the sunset takes place. So section 1 kind of lays out what it's aimed at. It is aimed at specifically at owner occupied properties. So it's the overall category, not individual homes. My hope and dream for our office is that as much as possible, it's business as usual. I need my new staff to understand how to arrive at market value on all properties, not just those that are not owner occupied. We need to be able to pull comparables and look at, okay, this is what it sold for, here's its market value. I have ideas of how to do that again without Department of Revenue guidance. I'm not sure if that will work or not. I've been in contact with my the gentleman that worked with me on Catalyst, and he seems very confident that they'll be able to implement it. I also have confidence in the fact that Catalyst is the software company that runs the state software. So due to that fact, I think that getting our information to the state will be much easier because they already have a lot of the formulas in place. So we still can increase for new improvements or new classifications. So kind of going back to my overall value going up 10%, that overall value is not capped at 3% for everything. It's just owner occupied. And then if you have things that change classification or new build, that can be exempted as well. So we may not see a change in that full reappraisal value dropping to 3%. So the biggest thing is that it feels like it doesn't address that we still have to have an assessed full and true value between 85 and 100% of market. I had neighborhoods where it did 13% increase. If I'm capped at 3, that's 10% below market. If the state comes back and my median's 86 and I was capped, is my median now 76? It also does not change that people will still be taxed at 85% of market. So if we assess below market, they raise your taxable value. And you don't get warning about that. That just comes on your tax bill. So there's some things about that that are a little bit scary.
And luckily, everyone will understand that the state did that, not you, right?
Yep, yep. So section 2, I feel like mostly applies on the auditor side. It addresses levies and revenue payable. Gotta be honest, I didn't understand much of section 2. I know how to calculate a levy. I'm not good at it. That's Carrie's job. It adds an extra step for our office in tracking and reporting growth, new improvements, and class changes. It'll just, rather than saying all of this is new growth, it caps owner occupied growth only applies as growth, that 0.82 that I gave you guys. If it's owner occupied, it only qualifies as growth if it increases the overall value more than 40%. So we're going to see a lot of things going away from that growth category. This is probably the one thing I was most in favor of, just because I'm of the opinion that if someone finishes their basement, does that burden the taxing entities more? If someone refinishes their kitchen, does that burden the taxing entities more? Is that reason to increase budgets, or is that something that someone's doing to enjoy their home?
I think, because I thought through that one a lot too, and a place where where I did have some concern was a person could do a 30% improvement to their house this year. They might be in there for 15 years. They do a 30% improvement to their house each year. And you could find yourself in a situation where you happen to own a house that was worth a whole lot at the end of 15 years of 30% annual improvements on it. And it would be taxed as though it was that from the beginning. Right?
We are still allowed to increase their market value due to reappraisal. That would be considered reappraisal.
Okay.
It is no longer considered growth, which is one of those percentages that you guys can increase your budget by.
Okay, that makes that's good clarification, Lenny, I think.
Yep.
Yep.
Section 3 and 6 are kind of addressing school levies, again, digging into that tracking and reporting of values, and then that 40% or more increases. So as much as this is more on Carrie's side, there is just added administrative burden on our end of things of where does that increased value go, whether it's reappraisal, whether we can still increase their market value, but then our overall value can't go up more than 3%. So sections 4 and 5 updated the elderly freeze. Again, this goes into effect July 1st. So today is the last day that people can apply for the elderly freeze in the treasurer's office. These values do not affect this year. They go into effect July 1st, so next year. Single member income in 2026, if you make less than 55,000, you qualify. If you have a two household income or multi-member income, if you make 65,000 or less, you qualify. Currently, I think it's lower than that, but I don't remember how much. There you go. Thank you. And then the property value cap moves from, I think it's currently somewhere like 340,000, that jumps up to 500,000. So just finally making a change to the market value of the home that allows more people to qualify for the elderly freeze. And then they keep increasing by the index factor, which was always in place.
The assessed value.
Yes. Yep. So that's kind of overview of 216. I'm hoping that by the time that we have conference in June, they'll have more guidance for us. Oh. And again, that's my interpretation of the bill. Any other questions?
Thank you for walking us through all that. I mean, this is really complicated stuff. You spend your whole days deep in it and we don't, and it's very important for us to understand it as deeply as we can, and you do a really good job
Thanks.
sharing
Yep.
that information.
My door is always open. So if you guys ever have questions, come on in. Although I will be gone for 3 days this week. Fine. Yeah. Don't come in then. Yep. All right. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
For Tuesday,
Yes.
so we open consolidated board. We have to do that same time.
You guys qualify as a quorum without them.
Okay.
Right? Right, Michael? Cause there's 8 people. There's 8 people, so it'll be 2 or 2 city council and a school board. And they just need a quorum to open it and then go into, it's not recess?
Recess.
Yeah,
And then you'll recess it till the 15th.
and you're saying that just the county commission?
Makes up a quorum.
Because we're 5 of the 8.
Oh,
I couldn't remember how it worked.
I think that's correct.
yeah, as long as you're a majority, I would agree.
Yeah, so as a quorum, you open the Board of Equalization and then we'll have our meetings on Tuesday, the 15th.
Oh, we'll see. You guys won't have to convince me. Before we get. Sounds good.
Trade you. No, just kidding. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynette.
In that same section, this has nothing to do with. One.
Bateman, annual review appeals process.
No, it was the. At the office of hearing examiners, and then it's report. I see where that's.
Okay,
You see that line? Under
Which-
section?
which page are you on?
This is
28 of 32.
Yep, and page 2 of the, okay,
appeal.
and then under which circuit court?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm there.
The blue section says
Yes.
use of the term file.
Yes, means in the hands of the official when it's being filed. That's interesting.
So I don't know if you can use that. It has nothing to do with
Right,
Linnea's thing, but
yeah, I'll take a look. I'll take a look at that.
I mean, that's the first definition we've heard of
Yes.
file.
Yeah.
I noted that too. I was just like, hey.
Now, it doesn't cite to the authority, but it does at least
But at
give
least,
a statement.
at least the State Department has.
Yeah.
Somewhat defined it.
Interesting.
Well, and, or they're just watching out. They'll be like, hey, let's say something so that if somebody, we have to talk about this in court, we can
Right.
point to a document. So they might have just made that up.
Perfect. Pass it
It's there
along.
long enough, you made it up.
Oh, yeah.
Now if it's working.
Yeah.
Right, right, I'll pass it along.
Does not say the official or their official designee or so you gotta make sure you get it in Linnea's hands. Yep.
Okay, vouchers, everybody get to see those? And
Motion made the vouchers.
Second.
motion and second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All same sign, motion passes. Design build committee appointments.
Yeah,
We have a volunteer.
all right. So I think, again, as to section 5 of the design build procedures for procurement that we've agreed upon. I read this last week, but I'll just read it again just so that it's clear as to what I think is necessary today. So there shall be a technical review committee made up of individuals capable of evaluating designs and design documents. So that's really the factor. You need to pick a committee who's capable of evaluating designs and design documents. The committee shall be made up as follows. The total voting members shall typically consist of a minimum of 3 persons. So 3 is a minimum. You could do more than that.
Well, it's enough.
I mean, it doesn't say that, but I think probably common sense dictates that should be true. And shall include a minimum of the facilities manager. So I think that's essentially decided already, even though the vote is to the commission. It says right in the document that the facilities manager shall be. 1 county commissioner, so minimum of 1 county commissioner and a minimum of 1 individual designated by the county commission. The commission shall also have the option of appointing non-voting members to the committee. These individuals would be involved in the discussion and interviews and would lead up to the award of the design build contract, but would not have a direct vote. The voting members shall consider the recommendations of the non-voting members. The county commission shall appoint the committee. So today, step 1, county commission appoint the committee. Again, with keeping in mind that really the only factors are that if you find individuals capable of evaluating design and design build documents, minimum of 1, the facilities manager, 1 county commissioner, and 1 individual designated by the county commission, other non-voting members as well. I've already reached out to Tyler from Tegra and asked, once we get through that process today, can we have a meeting, the committee have a meeting with him this week or next week to just understand what the next steps are, with an aim that then I think that probably the proper thing to do is hopefully we get that accomplished before next Tuesday's meeting, and then come to next Tuesday's commission meeting with an understanding of what the committee's job will then be, so that we can start moving forward.
I have a question. So. Design build, we did talk about just the same committee. All in the selection grading process.
That is this committee. Yep, it's the technical review committee.
Do I get eliminated from here based on the fact that contractors might be reaching out to me?
Well,
It says facility manager, but that could be anybody.
let me see if that's true.
I didn't have a chance to read through the new one all this morning. I've been gone for a couple of days. Are you voting, see a voting member?
He would be under the way that we have it written, is that, and the term facilities manager isn't defined. My interpretation was that it was essentially intended to be the county's facilities manager.
So shall.
It shall include, correct. And it's not defined as being anything separate or different from that. I believe it's proper that it's our facilities manager, and then we'll have to work out the kinks as to what that means for individual projects.
Extension that needs to be made at any time or.
Right.
How about?
That was easy.
Yeah. Thank you, Glenn.
We need to set a number first, how many we want to run.
Yeah, probably a good idea. And then I think you guys make that decision, the number you want, minimum of 3. It tells you who it shall consist of, right? Facilities manager, county commissioner, other individual, and then the number of non-voting members. And then, yeah, I think just walk through the appointment process.
So they're gonna be signing documents then?
I'm not sure. I mean, ultimately, the final say will always be the commission. The technical review committee will just make recommendations to the committee. Or rather, to the commission. The commission as a whole will make the final decision.
Minimum 5.
Well, who's gonna be our voting members? I know Andy got voluntold, are you still?
I think
Rhonda not arguing about the home that should be done.
And the recommendation was that I was also on, but I would prefer to also be non-voting. I think that's proper, because I'd be really the one giving more legal advice.
So if we got Scott, Glenn and Andy is voting and then Rhonda and Mike, that's five. That's five. Yeah.
Voting, I mean, it's either gonna go to 5 or 7.
Now,
That's
the
a
only,
lot of people to get.
Yeah, that's, I
Well,
mean,
That
I think we
probably
got
doesn't
our
matter,
five right
especially
here.
if they're not
Yeah.
Voting.
Right.
I mean, if you got 3 voting. you probably
yeah,
have
we
to
got
get
Scott,
it.
Glenn and Andy to vote.
the only concern I would have is if Scott gets himself into a situation where he feels he has a conflict and shouldn't be part of the voting, then I think you would need to probably consider moving to a 5-member committee. I mean, there's no language in here for an alternate. I think probably the proper way to do it would go to 5. I don't know how much concern Scott has about that potential.
My concern is, taking phone calls with the contractors, and may not know them already, you know.
Yeah, but
It gets enough.
Regardless if it's 3
But
or 5 though.
you're also not financially benefiting
That's true.
from that. And he is only one vote.
questions. Yeah.
Guiding them, if the other ones don't ask the question, that's on them.
I was gonna say, regardless if
Wouldn't get a different answer.
regardless if it's 3 or 5 people, when he abstains, it'd still be a tie vote, so.
You're not,
Yeah.
you're not making the final decision.
Right.
Want to be sure.
Yeah, it is good to be really careful.
Are you saying, Mike, we should have 5 voting?
I'm saying you can move it above 3, but I think and you're totally right. If you go to an odd number and you have to have him sit out for any reason, you're still at then an even number. So I think you have the flexibility. I'm not sure that it cures the problem from going to 3 to 5. But you absolutely have the flexibility of going above 3 or just keeping it at 3.
And it doesn't say anything about an alternate.
It doesn't mention an alternate. And really, I mean, I would say since it's silent on whether or not an alternate could exist, I would say can't,
Say what, but can't or
cannot.
cannot. I don't think you should be concerned about Scott's involvement in it. When we went through our process to select architects and contractors to build our building, many of these firms came and toured and visited and asked questions. They all asked different questions. Many of them asked the same question. But they did their own research. That's their job, to do their research. Allowing Scott would mislead one over another. I don't think the fact that he spoke to somebody prior to the consideration matters.
I don't think it's a factor.
And I agree, and I think on that point, Andy, it's a little bit off, it's adjacent, but you know, the determination specifically to commissioners on determining whether or not there's a conflict of interest that I always advise you on is whether there's a direct pecuniary interest, that's been state law, or case law mentions an official it just says you have to ensure you are disinterested, free from bias, and have no predisposition of the outcome. So long as that's true, no pecuniary interest, you remain disinterested, free from bias, and have no predisposition, unless there's something else out there that I'm unaware of. I think that's really the guiding post as well. And so long as you can meet those standards, and I think with the experiences that Andy's had, I would be very comfortable saying Scott can continue on the committee.
Bias, Rhonda?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe her.
You're not worried about the outcome?
That's why I'm on the committee.
This isn't just this project. This could be.
Well, this is specific to this project, right? We can reappoint if it was appropriate to do
They're
so.
combining 2 projects.
Yeah.
I need to clarify, this is for the center project.
I mean, we're appointing them generally, but our motivation is for this project.
I would agree. Your
Well, you
point,
got the courthouse, right? The security. Isn't that gonna be part of this?
Yeah, no, that's fine, I didn't know.
Because I thought we were trying to get the same
yes.
contractor. Hopefully you get the best bids for both.
And Glenn, you've got some historic preservation background, right? Didn't you work with a church out in Corey contractor?
Marty did,
Or Marty did?
when he
Okay.
did.
Yeah.
One of those houses over
So that,
Yale or
I think-
University, I think it was.
that'll be a
University.
comfort to people if you're working on, if you're on this committee and you guys are doing the courtroom security stuff. I think people will appreciate that.
I think we just keep the 3 and 5 we talked about.
You got the list, Kerry? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to we appoint Scott, Glenn, Andy, Rhonda, and Mike to the committee three voting members of Scott, Glenn, and Andy.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
On that, I will forward the email then of Tyler's availability to the committee and with hopes of being able to schedule a meeting here in the coming days.
Clay County Park, anything?
No, nothing new there. No.
Building project updates.
Same as last week, I mean, the final walls will be going up in the next few weeks. Towers should be going up, radio towers should be going up within a month. Substantial completion is the end of May. Looking like we should be able to occupy right fall.
Sound good. Awesome. Joint jurisdiction.
No, but do we have a meeting with that? I saw something from Drew, it's the 15th.
Right, but I haven't seen any notice about it or anything.
Only thing I saw was from Drew.
So I can
from
give them
planning and
insight
zoning.
to that is the notice, by the time that it was all squared up, it couldn't be put in the newspaper on last Friday, so notice is gonna be published this week. And so that'll go out on the newspaper on the 8th and then with the date of the 15th.
So we're doing both things on the
And
15th.
we'll be discussing the JJZA or whether we want to leave it, and we'll be discussing the appeal that came up at the last meeting.
That was my understanding of the
Okay.
discussion.
They're both
Okay.
supposed to be the same day.
Okay, that's
At
We have it here? Or does it have to be-
City Hall.
City Hall to accommodate everybody. You don't like sitting on the phone?
My feeling was
We need taller
to
chairs.
rotate locations is what
We can't pay everybody.
Yeah.
Well, and this is the biggest room we've ever had. That's why we've always had it over there.
Okay,
It's just,
that's fine.
that's how it got started. That's why we never rotated. Cause you remember the old commissioner room upstairs.
Yeah.
We got the board in there and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, other commissioner reports.
Interviews yesterday for the 4-H educator went well. There will be an offer going out, and I believe there's even a contingent that one should pass. So we'll know more hopefully soon, but it's the state process, so maybe not. And also kind of Development Corporation had a meeting, and they're still moving forward in a good progress. They're looking at getting a kind of a lit sign. It's probably somewhere close to the fire department there on the main drag, so people kind of know what's going on in town. They're trying to make more awareness in town. And, they're still working on the governor's house, getting that secured. So within 3 years, they'll have a house to put on, and they're looking at all the open lots that they have available. So a lot of good things happening in small little kind of.
Awesome. I had one thing, we were supposed to have a landfill meeting last week, but they didn't have a quorum. Must have had some people with their commitments, so I believe the next one will be June.
So I'm gonna be going up to my first CCOG meeting tomorrow, so if anybody has anything you want me to bring, let me know, but I'll report back.
And Glenn, you're our water basin delegate, correct?
Yes, and I haven't had anybody contact me. I don't know.
Right, cause I talked to Brad the other day, Brad Preheim, who's the executive director.
Okay,
And he thought it was still Dick. He didn't know Dick got off the commission. So I was
okay.
like, I'll get you. So do you want me to just send you Brad's cell phone number and you wanna contact him? or-
Yeah, if you would.
Okay.
Yep, I'll give him a call. 'Cause I did look back at some minutes and I don't know if, Iverson, Bob,
Bob,
was he still on there?
yep,
Okay,
he's still on there.
Okay.
And, Sarah Chapman, Dick's wife.
okay,
They're the two Vermillion reps. There's two districts in Vermillion.
okay. Yeah, if you give me his number, I'll give him a call.
And it sounds like you only have to go like once a year. You get the information through email, but
Yeah,
you're kind of a liaison.
yeah, yeah. That's what it looked like in the past minutes that I could find.
You need executive session, Michael, for anything
Yes, I want to go into executive session just to update on some legal.
legal? I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passes.
Shoot. Slow.
Lord, it's hard to see from over here. I do have a monitor for this, I just haven't got it hooked up yet.
Also, try to look across the room.
Well, I can't see it from over there either, so either way, I'm kind of stuck.
Second. A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We're in regular session. Anything else? Are we good?
Your turn.
Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We're adjourned. Thank you.